Wonderful. All right. Good afternoon. This open meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation. Unless such participation is required by law, this meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, Nantucket Affordable Housing Trust is convening by Zoom as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I, Rima Sherry, the vice chair, notes otherwise. Ground rules. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct for our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the vice chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the vice chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the vice chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comments, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged through the chair. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be by roll call. Okay, so I skipped the part at the beginning. All right, members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Dave Iverson.
Here.
Penny Dye.
Here.
Brooke Moore.
Here.
Meg Browers.
Here.
Okay, and staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Haley Cook.
Here.
And Ken Bogrand.
Present.
And Town Council Vicky Marsh.
Here.
And let's acknowledge Chantal. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. And then we also have anticipated speakers, Ann Cuspa.
Here.
And Billy Cassidy.
I'm here.
Great. All right. I think we're ready to go to item 2, approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion, Dave, and seconded by Penny. All in favor, Dave.
Aye.
Penny Dye.
Aye.
Brooke Moore.
Aye.
Meg Browers.
Aye.
And Chantal Boyce Murphy.
Aye.
And I say aye. All right, approval of the minutes. Item 3 will be approving the minutes from November 1st of 2022. Can I hear a motion to approve, or is there any corrections? Penny?
Yeah, I had a bunch of very minor, mostly minor corrections that I shared with Haley, and subject to those, I would move approval.
Okay.
Yes, they're noted, and it's just for the public to acknowledge primarily typos with one figure incorrect number, which will be updated as well. In case
Thanks,
you want to know.
Let's just tell them what it was, because it was sort of amusing.
Okay, yeah.
The figure was $75,000 a month to the to the consultants to move the housing bank forward. And I said at that, it would be almost $1 million a year and they should have been able to get it done by now. So it's 7,500, not 75,000.
That's right.
Okay.
I
that's
will
Penny's
second Penny's motion.
All right, seconded by Brooke. And Dave? We're voting.
Aye. I was just thinking in my head, making sure I was there. I was. It was the previous meeting that I missed.
Penny,
Aye.
Brooke,
Aye.
Meg,
Aye.
and Sean. Okay.
Aye.
Great. And I'm aye. Okay. Public comment. I see Elizabeth Blair, also of Housing Nantucket, has joined us. Is there any public comment? All right, seeing none, let's go on to, no. Yeah, the item 5, the CFAP application for Campasi at 67 Milestone Road. Are there any questions on this application for covenant formation assistance? All right. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve this application.
I'll move approval.
Okay, do you want to do the whole thing with the up to?
Yeah, up to $10,000. Subject to the rules of the program.
Okay,
I'll
thanks,
second
Brooke,
that.
and seconded by Dave. All right, ready for a vote? Dave,
Aye.
Penny,
Aye.
Brooke,
Aye.
Meg,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Okay. All right. Item 6 is the year-round definitions that was circulated through Vicky. Anne.
Hi, sorry to interrupt. Just wanted to mention about that Covenant Formation Assistance Program that you just approved. It was our first application for a tertiary lot covenant. So we're really excited about that. So thank you for approving that. And that will be a third covenant lot on one lot. So we're very excited. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Anne. Okay, on to year-round definitions. I need to get my little,
Can you,
yes, Penny.
what do I call you, Madam Chair? Madam Chair. When was this sent, that the language about year-round definitions? I'm having trouble locating it.
I think that it was in the packet sent on Friday, Haley.
Yeah, this is the discussion group that we had, not the Vicky warrant items, but just the general discussion.
Okay,
It was Tucker, Brooke, myself, and Meg. It's on, I have the public packet, so I'm not exactly sure the
On
page.
page 3, I think. It begins on page 3 and then moves on to page 4 in
Yeah.
your packet.
After the minutes, it's for me, it's page 12, but I think it might.
I'm looking at the public document.
All right. Well, first off, I want to thank Meg and Sean for doing this research and coming up
We have
with
Megan Sean.
with their recommendations and ideas. My comment is I'm a little concerned that that employment is such a big factor in determining year-round status. You know, there's retired individuals. You know, it just, I don't know. I feel like employment shouldn't really factor in. I think there are other ways of determining year-round status without bringing employment into the mix, just because not everyone's employed. Brooke?
Actually, Chantal had her hand up before I did.
Oh, okay, Sean.
Thank you. We did include a component in there for those who aren't employed. We had definitions for if you're a retired individual, what that quantifies or qualifies you as a year-round individual. And we also factored in, car registrations and things like that. If you don't have the employment piece to prove it,
Okay,
voter registration, that sort of thing.
great. Okay, Brooke, and then Penny.
So the only scenario, you guys help me figure out how this scenario would fit into your framework. Someone works remotely and lives here under, meeting the other criteria, but they moved here, during the pandemic and they work remotely. So these are these criteria, it's like you have to meet X number of them or any one of them, or I guess the problem is that if someone could just move here and live here year round and not have been here very long or work here.
Penny.
Yeah, my concern follows that, which is that most of the references here on the bullet points refer to employment at a legitimate business on Nantucket, but the second bullet point just says at a legitimate business. So this is saying that the majority of these bullets say that people have to work on Nantucket. And if that's the intention, it just needs to be consistent. And if it is the intention, I guess I'd want to know why, because increasingly people are not necessarily working on Nantucket.
Meg.
I think it's fair to say that what we were trying to do was to establish the easiest ways to verify year-round residency first. So if you have year-round employment that can be verified, minimum 30 hours a week, there's your verification method, boom. If you have children enrolled in the schools here, that could be an easy verification method. So we're trying to take big groups of people off the charts first. And Chantal and I went through I don't even know how many scenarios, just going back and forth being okay, how do we verify this person? Or would this person be verifiable? Maybe they don't. Maybe they're not eligible. So for retirees, you could do their voter registration, car registration, in-person affidavit. I think we talked about a seasonal person who may have, who we would want to put some constructs in there so that obviously we're verifying the people who we want to verify, but then we're also not verifying the people who don't legitimately live here year round, which we were defining as 10 months, right, Chantal? Minimum of 10 months. So the employment piece, we were just bringing this forward to you guys to brainstorm and think it through with us. So I'm totally open to back and forth discourse. Our thought was with the employment piece that it was an easy way to verify a large group of people on the island, but not a requirement. So in reading through the options, you could pick and choose. I mean, this is our language, right? So we can pick and choose what we feel like is necessary, but not a requirement. If you're a retiree, there's opportunities for that. I just wanted to clarify a couple of those ideas that we had. Chantal, I don't know if I miss anything.
Penny.
So you were doing it sort of like a matrix, like a checklist, where different things may or may not apply, which I think makes sense. My other question has to do with would this be would you be looking retroactively?
That was the other piece I was thinking of when someone asked a question. So in order to qualify for this definition, right, you'd have to have completed at least 12 months Like this would
That
be
makes sense.
upon doing whatever meeting one of these criteria or however many we decide, however, whatever matrix we decide works. You wouldn't be able to qualify as a year-round resident 1 month into your year-round residency was our thinking.
We also wanted to, just going back to the fact that it mentions employment so much, we also wanted to make sure that for those people who are here, that work remotely, but they live here, you know, for 11, 12 months of the year, that they're included as well. And we'd imagine that those people are registered to vote on Nantucket. That they're also paying, they have a utility bill, and it's not just show me your utility bill that you're paying, you know, $30. I don't know what Comcast bills cost. You're paying Comcast. Shame on me for not knowing
More
that.
than that.
I know, I'm like, yeah, $30 in like the 90s, maybe. You know, that they're showing actual usage to show that, you know, it's not a house that's closed up and someone's lives on Nantucket but working from Florida all winter long. And then also car registration. You actually have to prove that you are a fully functioning citizen of Nantucket, resident of Nantucket, as opposed to someone who lives on Nantucket. And I think we all know a lot of those people. So we were brainstorming back and forth. We're also thinking about people who work seasonally. You know, they live on Nantucket, but they work in the restaurant industry. Do they have kids in the school system? That's a very easy way to prove that they're here all year long as well. So we were trying to go through our list of criteria, thinking about people that we know personally and how they qualify as year-round residents in our minds, and hoping that you guys can, you know, ask the hard questions that force us to go back and think about it a little bit more.
Dave.
Thank
And then-
you. Megan, Chantal, thanks so much for all the work you've done. I did a couple things, and actually through you, Madam Chair, to Vicky. Is all this up and up? Are we allowed to do this?
By your question, Dave, are we allowed to implement a year-round restriction? Is that what you're asking?
No, are we allowed to pick out certain people like this?
So, you know, I think that it's problematic. I think, and I've sort of sat back and listened to.
I saw you like,
comments.
I could tell you, you were going there.
I didn't want to interrupt. I think it becomes problematic, and the problem's going to be that when you try to say impose a restriction and offer a restriction, like, you know, purchasing someone's year-round restrictions, you're going to end up having to probably put it in like a zoning bylaw, perhaps. And that's going to be subject to the Attorney General's review. And so they may look at this and perhaps deem it constitutional, unconstitutional, or may have some objections to this plan. So I think that we have to, when we're doing this, we're going to have to think about how we're going to implement this, where you propose to do this. Like I said, is it going to be a zoning bylaw, or, I mean, that would seem to be the logical place perhaps, but I'm not sure. And then, you know, it's going to be subject to first, and then it's going to have to go to town meeting, of course. And then if it passes, then it would be subject to some oversight. And so that, you know, there's a long way for this to go. And so when you think about it, you need to think about it in terms of trying to get it approved also.
So are we as a group, I'm sorry, Brooke, do you want to jump in quick? Are we as a group looking to define this for everything we do or for specific parts of our programs? Because I'm trying to figure out who we're trying to weed out, in other words, for lack of a better word.
I'm not sure, you know, I know
That's for anyone to answer, right? Not just
one
you.
aspect was that it has come up in discussions amongst the board, amongst the trustees, of trying to acquire
Deed
restrictions for year-rounders. And so how would we do that? How would you define that? And so I think that was one of the ideas for its implementation.
I mean, I think it's as simple as how long have they occupied their house? Right? I mean, I think that we might be able to boil it down that simply. And I know, listen, I know you guys have done a ton of work. Don't take this the wrong way, but I'm just trying to make it pretty simple and clear cut. And really, I think we're targeting people that have lived in their own house, that are struggling to live here. You know, probably a lot of them are going to be older, that are struggling to live here on a fixed income and could use that extra bump in exchange for a year-round restriction. And when I say that, I'm talking about certain areas of the island. And I think in some sense, we should talk to Andrew about maybe creating an overlay district for restrictions. Brooks says no, but it's a bigger question. So I'll let Brooke go and Penny and then chime in later.
Yeah, Brooke.
So for me, the purpose of this is a voluntary agreement between someone and the trust in exchange for money. So they are voluntarily relinquishing or agreeing to abide by a certain set of residency rules and occupancy rules, or however we define it. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but like, we're not forcing this on anyone. We're giving them money in exchange for them agreeing to these conditions, and that then when that property trades hands, the idea is that these conditions carry with the property in perpetuity. That's, to me, the more complex part of this than the person who's getting the cash up front. I mean, the next person is getting potentially a less expensive home because with restrictions attached, it's a different market. So the theory behind this is, can we create a market that's potentially between deed restricted affordable homes and market rate homes? So does a year-round restriction in and of itself, year-round occupancy restriction, create almost like a third market that's governed by demand? The pricing is governed by demand. Is I think, if I'm going to channel Sully here, one of the ideas he had. Now the question is, can we even use trust assets without an income restriction on it? And that's a different level of qualification and management and oversight. But I don't know, Vicky, if I don't want the limits, I just don't take the cash, right?
Right. I mean, I think what you're trying to do, like you said, is to create a group of people who are going to, want to have this restriction imposed. And so how do you determine who is a year-rounder? And there are definitions, like, for instance, using funds for the Covenant program and different things like that. Housing Nantucket has these year-round restrictions in them, and they define it as, I believe it, and quote, don't hold me to it, but I think it's 10 months of occupancy here right now on the island. So that's already been there. And so if you want to take that and use that as a definition that you can use for this program, you can certainly extend it or maybe amplify it a little bit, but that's already there.
Okay. Penny.
My question, Rima, I guess is through you to Anne. I know that Housing Nantucket already has these definitions. A lot of thought was already put into that. And I guess I'd like to know where they could be improved. And I mean, are there loopholes? I know we ran into a situation, or you did earlier, where somebody was living here but not working here. Are there ways to improve upon the existing rather than reinventing this? Just a question. Thank you.
Anne.
Yeah, The utility bill, inclusion of the utility bill is really helpful because and it's a water bill or an electric bill really, because then you see the usage drop when the people aren't around. The issue that we have had is enforcing when someone most people comply. Then when we do find out someone's kind of skirting the line and we try to impose fines, most people then will get back in line. But in points where they are really blatantly ignoring our enforcement fines and encouragement to sell the unit, it's hard to collect zoning enforcement fines from people without going to court, which we can do, but we try to kind of avoid that situation. So if there's a way you all could impose a fine or somehow kind of between that where they aren't complying and you could impose fines, that I would say that would be room where you could strengthen your program.
Okay. Penny, do you have a follow-up?
I'm sorry for talking so much, but I feel like the program has to be more fully developed before we get too bogged down in the definition here.
Okay. And Sean?
I think we've trying to find a politically correct way of saying this. This is why I don't talk during these meetings. But I think so there were two separate groups created. There was one group that was working on just solely the definition, and that was what Meg and I were working on. We weren't looking at any financial ties to this definition, just trying to define it as through our research. And with Haley's help, of course, we found that there were a number of organizations functioning on the island that had different definitions. Some are 10 months, some are 11 months, some define it by amount of weeks on the island. And we basically took those groups and their definitions and somewhat fused them together. And also from my very small knowledge of working at Housing Nantucket, when I did thinking about the ways that we found that people kind of skirted around those rules and trying to think further on how we could, if there were those who were, how we could truly have a defined way of calling them out, essentially, and knowing for a fact that they weren't actually living in the home. And then, of course, looking at Provincetown, Oak Bluffs, and Vail, who this is very heavily mirrored off of as well. So we weren't talking about any financial ties to the definition as of yet. That was a separate group that was working on it.
Thank you, Sean. Meg?
I also want to just recognize that I think defining what makes someone year-round or not could be considered a pretty political conversation right now. I think there's a lot of tension in the community about what makes you year-round, what makes you not year-round. Are you not year-round because you're renting out your property to make money for your family, for college tuition or what have you down the road? But for our intents and purposes, I don't want us to be afraid of defining what year-round means and kind of stepping out and saying something about what, according to the Affordable Housing Trust and the Affordable Housing Trust alone, we define as year-round, so that you would be able to access some of the incentive packages that we're considering. And that's it. As long as we keep it in our realm and in our lane, I feel more comfortable and confident establishing a definition that meets our needs. And it's has the potential to have some kickback from the community and people questioning us. But to Brooke's point, if you don't want to establish your year-round residency by the whatever matrix we decide upon as a trust, you don't have to access our incentive program. But if you do want to access the incentive program, we as a group need to come to some kind of consensus about what the minimum would be to access those incentives. And what I kept going back to when I was talking to Chantal and then the other group that we were discussing possible incentive programs, what I had to keep reminding myself of was you don't have to fall within the guidelines of year-round status according to our definitions, particularly if you want to rent your house out for 4 months a year and really capitalize on that in-season market, Or if you move off island for the winter because you want to live in a different location for 3 or 4 months of the year, that's your prerogative, but that means you don't qualify for the incentive program. So it's either or, you know, you can choose one or the other, but you can't have both. And that, I just wanted to put those words into the conversation as well.
Thank you, Meg. Dave,
So
and then Vicky.
as this applies to buying year-round restriction, so this would be more of an issue on the back end when that house sells, right? Not so much about who we're buying the restriction from, but who owns the house after the restriction's in place and the person living there sells it, right? Am I on the right track there, Brooke?
Brooke.
So I would say it's 2 steps. It's the person who's being paid for the restriction needs to qualify under these criteria. And then in perpetuity, everyone who dwells there
Good.
needs to comply under these criteria.
I think buying the restriction should be pretty straightforward. If they're not living in the house or the house isn't occupied, I mean, but still, if the house is a good house and they're willing to sell the restriction, I mean, I think there's a discussion there to not limit who we're, you know, we want to buy it from the most needy people. But, and on the back end, why is it any different than the same rules we have for a covenant home once they buy it?
Okay,
Question, Brooke.
So to me, the simplest criterion is you have to occupy the house for 10 months a year or 11 or whatever we decide. And then we have a list of verification ways to verify.
Once they're living there.
Yeah, verify that they are a year-round occupant of the home,
Mhm.
right? And that could be employment, kids in school. I mean, self-employment, you know, how do you define legitimate business? I was a self-employed bookkeeper, but I registered my business with the town of Nantucket. So that a lot of people don't do that, right, for self-employment, but there is a mechanism for it. And so you have a list of criteria that qualify, that prove that and verify that you are complying with the 10-month residency requirement.
Covenants have the same requirement, correct?
Right, but I'm
How do
saying
we verify
tighten the,
those?
yeah.
And no, I'm not saying we shouldn't I mean, this should definitely be strict and enforced. And as Vicky said, zoning, or as Ann said, it's very difficult to do through zoning because it's just a difficult process to levy fines. So, but yeah, I mean, I think we need to try to keep it as simple as we can. But I don't disagree with anything anyone said about enforcing or about people qualifying. I just think we need to try to make it simple.
Okay, Vicky, please.
So I think that going back to the idea of trying to simplify how you would define a year-round resident, I would keep it as simple as you can. And I think that, you know, the idea like the covenant program has, the 10-month is something that certainly works. I worry that if you start becoming very restrictive, that you open yourself up to potentially someone saying, well, gee, I'm being excluded, you know, because of XYZ restriction that you have. And I would normally want to participate in this program, but because of these limitations and these restrictions, I'm not able to. And I think even though it's a voluntary program, some of the restrictions may be excluding people that would otherwise want to participate. And so again, I think you open yourself up to a potential lawsuit from somebody making that type of a claim. So I think the simpler, the better.
Okay, thank you. Brooke.
So I just thought of an example. If someone who has a disability and is unable to work and lives here and can't verify employment, does not work. That kind of thing. Like, so I think to Vicky's point, if you make the verification more flexible and the rule really simple, then it can be done on a case, more on a case. And then I was also thinking, right, this definition could be applied. I was talking about the buying deed restriction, but it could also be applied to, if we did a rental incentive program, how do we define to ensure that the incentive is being used to rent to someone who lives here year round? If it's to a landlord, we talked in Neighborhood First about selling deed restrictions, and one multi-property owner landlord asked for, I don't know, 400 grand a unit to buy down deed restrictions. And how would we define what those leases need to look like and how they need to verify the occupancy under those leases? So when you think about it applying across programs as well, multiple programs, keeping it simple makes sense.
Okay. Is this something that we'd like Vicky to look at this research and discussion that's been done, and see what can be put together that simplifies things and covers the greatest swath of the population? Any thoughts on that, Ken?
My question goes to Vicky. What I don't understand is how you can make this exist the time that the person who is granting it gives the deed restriction. If it's a deed restriction, I could see how it can be there, and the person buying it coming in has to push it. But if it's simply an undertaking to be able to do it during the period, you're buying something for a very short period of time, which then can't be carried on to the next person moving into the house, because it is not there permanently for them to be aware of. And so therefore, you're just paying for a period of time when the person happens to be living there, as opposed to, in fact, permanently making the house comply with available from year round.
So I would answer that by saying that this would be a restriction that would be recorded at the registry. It would run with the property. It would run in perpetuity. So all of those protections would impose these restrictions, so that there would be this requirement on there, this restriction on there. And everybody knows, as when you're going to go and buy it, you're going to be buying it subject to this restriction. You're going to be selling it subject to that restriction. The value of this property is not going to be as great as it would be if it were unrestricted. But again, people understand that. And it allows, though, for the protection of a home to remain with someone who is going to be a year-round resident versus a summer resident.
Ken?
Vicky, the concern that I have then is that is a very different discussion relative to the price of what the person's going to ask for and what we're going to have to pay. Because in the initial discussions, it was as I was listening to it, it was going to be for the life of the person. When we now put it into the fact that there's going to be a deed restriction, that's a significant different amount of money that the person's going to want to have, because of the fact that they know it's going to reduce the amount that they can receive on the sale. It's just the point that I'm making.
Brooke?
Dave's fingers were poking up, but I'll just say something quick. I go to program applications of this, and I realize that's not really the point here. How this definition gets applied programmatically, and what the financial needs are to incentivize someone to participate in any particular program that requires year-round occupancy isn't really what we're discussing. We're just discussing who do we want to describe as a year-round resident, and therefore their ability to participate in any of the trust programming down the line.
Okay, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I think Brooke basically said it. That these are about the people that are buying. The people that are selling, we got to be careful about any restrictions there because we want people to sell them to us. And if we tell them, if we make a lot of conditions, it's going to be more difficult to get people to buy, to sell us their year-round restriction.
Okay, Billy.
So I'm thinking about a project that I'm probably doing next summer or in the spring. And it's a large building that will have 6 apartments in it that, as I sit here thinking about this right now, are for employees. And in fact, there's one outfit in town that I intend to make a deal with that they're going to be paying market rate rent for this, but it will be for one of their employees. Having said that, is employer housing off the table with this? And if so, how is that handled? How is it recognized as such?
Haley.
So not to impose, but I'm just thinking about what Brooke said. Previously on the agenda, the discussion was year-round definition and restriction. This agenda item was really meant to discuss what does the word year-round mean and not what programs are we going to apply it to and what are our programs and what are the monetary amounts. And I think we might be getting caught up in that a little bit, and maybe we could discuss that further. Just an
I
idea.
apologize, and I think that you're exactly right.
No,
So
no, Billy,
I will-
that
I
wasn't a
will
response to
quiet
you,
down.
just thinking about it in general. I just echoing kind of that thought.
Dave.
Yeah,
And
I
then
know I'm
think we
getting
should
off track,
move
but
on.
to Billy real quick, I think we make some stuff available through workforce housing through zoning that some people building that kind of housing can benefit from. So there's some things, but maybe there could be more to answer your question.
Well, Frank, just to that point, I don't think that my building should be eligible for any of this. And I would caution against that. I don't think it works well. That's all. But
Brooke, and then I think we should probably maybe put this for next meeting too, to continue the discussion. And in the meantime, Vicky, if you have any thoughts on simplifying this as much as possible, I think that would be super helpful. But Brooke.
And I think, in response to that, I think that taking a look at, for instance, how Housing Nantucket is using theirs and perhaps trying to, add to it or revise it in such a way that it makes it, easier for us to apply, I think would be better. So.
Okay, Brooke,
I can
and
do
then
that.
Mac. And then
Yeah,
we'll-
I think I go back to what is our goal here? And I think our goal here is to define something for the purposes of any program we have or develop in the future so that it's consistent. And if we improve upon what Housing Nantucket's doing, then I would hope that also might be changed in their literature and in their programs so that it's less confusing to the community, that we minimize confusion across programs to the extent we can. That is a huge benefit. So what are we trying to achieve? We're trying to create housing for people who live here and live here year round, right? That's the thing we talk about all the time. So we just need to define that, and then whatever program we have uses this definition within whatever details of the program and the financial details and all the other details of it, depending on the program.
Mhm.
So.
Okay, Meg.
I'm curious just to know the group's thoughts. I think I appreciate the concept that the simpler we make this, in theory, the easier it will be on us long-term in terms of applications for future programs or what have you. I think the problem lies within the concept that someone says, yes, I live here year round, your definition is say 10 months, but then we find out that they're not living there year round. And so we have to verify domiciles. So now we're looking at the what Housing Nantucket does, which is tax returns, driver's license, bank account statements, motor vehicle registration, voter registration, tax assessor records, and the list goes on. And we then have to collect this data and do this fact finding, fact checking afterwards, which if we were able to take 70% of the people off the list right away because they verify that they live and work here at a verified business, they're off the chart. We don't have to worry about verifying any of that documentation because they've proved it through simple verification methods like employment. If they have kids in the school system, same thing. So we just start moving big chunks of people into this verified category. And then we go follow the path that Housing Nantucket has to follow in verifying domicile, which is really time consuming and something that'd be nice to avoid if possible by easier verification methods. The thing that, oh shoot, my other point was, you can come back to me later. I forget what it was. Someone brought up something. I can't remember. Train went off the tracks.
Okay, thanks. All right, well, I definitely think there's plenty of food for thought here, and I'd like to, Meg again.
Yeah, I did remember what it was, and I think that what I started with was, I'm curious to know about the group's thought about 10 months. I mean, I think what the issue here really is that we're establishing that if you live here for 10 months of the year and you choose to do with your property whatever you decide to do, you leave it empty, you rent it, what have you, we're confident as a group that 10 months is the right magic number. Is that how everyone feels? Should it be more? Should it be less? I think Chantal and I went like a few steps ahead and started thinking about verification, whereas I think the real bottom line is just, is 10 months enough? Is it too much? Is it too little?
Dave and then Brooke real quick.
I think 10 months is good. And I think verification is the easy part. It's continued enforcement over a long period that's going to be a struggle.
Right. Brooke.
Yeah, I agree. And 10 months to me is the sweet spot, particularly as I get older and I might want to spend a little time in a warmer climate in the winter. So it leaves room for aging people to go spend time with their grandchildren for a period of time, from my very personal perspective.
Yeah, I'm good with 10. Okay, can we go to the rental incentive program, item 7? Let's see. So this was a group with Brooke and Meg, with Tucker and Haley, and I'm seeing the summary. Brooke, you want to talk about this, and Meg, either one, or yes, both? Brooke.
So we started getting into a lot of the weeds, as you do with these things, right? And this conversation we had about year-round definition, to me, I feel like maybe we're not ready for this, but I think what we should ask today is, what would we be trying to achieve with this? What is the purpose of a rental incentive program? And then you can work backwards to establish criteria and a program that meets those goals, right? So there are a lot of different goals, right? Is it to remove units from, is it targeted to moving units from short-term rental to year-round? Is it moving units that are shuffle houses where somebody gets to live there 9 months a year, that someone who's already renting to someone in the off season, but then short-term rents? Like, who are we trying to incentivize, and what are we actually trying to achieve as the goal, rather than start with the program and have that define the goals? We need to define the goals and then craft a program around it. So I would say I would be interested in maybe this group getting back together and coming up with a list of potential goals to present here, and then let's have a conversation about that, and then we can flesh out a program around those goals and figure out whether it's legal to do so.
Yeah. Personally, I think increasing the stock of year-round rentals would be, for me, a huge goal, because I still feel like people are still having a hard time finding a year-round rental, and that is affordable. And then there are a lot of people out here who do rent below market rate year-round just because it's helpful. It would be nice to incentivize that. And Penny was next, and then Dave.
Yeah, just really quickly, I like your idea, Brooke, your group's idea of a small pilot program, but I also want to just warn you about what Vicky warned us about, which is only 2 of us can meet outside of this, or else it's an official meeting.
Yeah, I
2
think
of
it
us
was.
plus staff. Thanks.
Well, it's two members and staff. Dave.
Yeah, I think I think we need to take a close look at what we're trying to achieve and how viable it is, just because we're not going to steal away the premier short-term rentals or even the middle of the market of short-term rentals. We're going to be preying on the lower end of the market. And so I think the question is it wiser to incentivize new builds as year-round or rentals, or I just think it's an interesting discussion, because I think if we're really trying to compete against STRs, that's not a good play for our money, and that we need to look carefully at how big that lower end of the market is and how we can make inroads. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on this? All right, more discussion to come. Okay, the warrant article to codify income limits served by the trust. Vicky, we have some language here. It's nice and short and sweet. Yay. Vicky, you want to talk about this?
Sure. So at our last meeting, we talked about the fact that you like the definitions of having affordable and attainable as a way to describe what you're trying to do. So I've changed the purpose that was in the trust so that it defines it as both affordable and attainable. And I've define the affordable as you requested to be less than 100% of the AMI, and then we would go up to 240 for attainable housing. And so I think that's pretty straightforward. That would be the only change that's proposed right now for the trust. So I don't know if this meets, your approval.
Okay. Ken?
Through you to Vicky, this doesn't change the CPC regulations with respect to it can't do anything above 100% in terms
No, but I have another article that is also here, which is going to propose that. So they're
Right.
separate.
They're separate, okay?
Yes.
And how do we do that? Does that have to be done by the state?
So the proposal to change the CPC limits would have to be done by a home rule petition. So it would go to town meeting for approval, and then it would have to be filed with the state.
And what we would be doing is actually amending the way that we adopted the CPC Act.
Right. So it's changing the CPC as it applies to Nantucket.
Okay.
And I can get to that one next if you want me to go to that now or wait.
Yeah, we don't have that one on the agenda, but it does kind of relate to this. Penny, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just, I'm sorry, back on the warrant article that we do have. I have a question through you to Vicky. On the 240, does that need a bottom threshold? Should it say, 101% to 240, or is it okay without that?
Well, I've defined I've defined affordable as low and moderate income households with with 100% or less. So then I guess I look at it as the next step is above 100% to 240.
Okay, and the only other comment is, should we perhaps say area median income, since that's what everybody is using to be consistent?
Sure.
Thanks.
Great.
Do you need a motion on this, or?
So can I just ask one other question is,
Yeah.
what are you going to be presenting this to the select board for their approval? How are you going to proceed next too? So you may want to think about that.
Yeah, and we had talked about that. Brooke.
Yeah, I would say that the process is to propose this as an article to be adopted by the select board, placed on the warrant by the select board on our behalf, because we would have had to do it as a citizen warrant article if without the select board doing it themselves. So I would say we should ask to have this we should vote to adopt it and recommend its inclusion on the warrant by the select board, and then communicate that to Libby and Jason and for inclusion on as an agenda item for the select board.
All right. Yeah, I don't think we need to take action this week, but now, there will be a few revisions as per Penny's suggestion. And Penny, do you have anything else?
No, that's fine. I was going to make a motion to approve this subject to adding area median income.
Well, yeah, let's do that.
Okay, and then send it to the selectmen per what Brooke just said.
Great. Do we have a second?
Yes. So Penny, if I may.
Yes, please.
Amend your motion to say
amendment.
that we recommend this article subject to the addition of the word area median income to the select board for inclusion on the 2023 annual town meeting warrant.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay.
I thought so. That's what I heard.
Good.
So
Do
I
we
would
have a-
second it.
Okay, seconded by Brooke. All right, roll call. Meg,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
Penny,
Aye.
Brooke,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
and I say aye. Great. All right, and I get Haley.
Yeah, just a quick thing. So I don't know what the timeline is to get the warrant article together, and I know it's approaching. Do you want me to submit this once Vicky has updated it directly to Erica for this next possible meeting for the select board?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it's not a huge. Brooke, we have time, right?
It's January.
Yeah, we're already reviewing, articles. So I think the select board likes to have it in advance.
Yeah.
And I think
Okay.
the trick here is just to ask Erica what the formal procedure, whether
Yeah.
Tucker does it as a staff request or
Yeah.
whether there's another. I don't know what the exact logistical path.
Okay,
is.
great. So
Erica will know.
okay, great. So Vicky, if you just want to send me a clean copy with
Sure.
the edits, I will do the next steps. Thank you.
Yeah, and then let's put the CPA change on the next one. And in the meantime, maybe Ken can, if Ken has a meeting with his board, he can get a sense of them. Brooke.
May I suggest, Madam Chair, that we agree this is the direction we want to go as a board, and maybe ask one of our board members to attend the next CPC meeting to have a conversation with them about this, along with Ken. I
Yeah,
think it would be.
That goes along with what we had talked about in previous meetings on this.
Yeah.
Yes, which Ken hadn't been at, so just trying to bring him up to speed. Is anyone willing to attend the next CPC meeting to talk about this?
Second Tuesday, September, 10 o'clock in the morning.
Hey, Ken, we're having a little trouble hearing you.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
know, you're a little
it's the
quiet.
It's the second Tuesday in the month in December, 10 o'clock in the morning.
He's saying it's the second Tuesday in December at 10
So
a.m.
it's the 13th.
Yes. At 10 a.m.
Anyone available?
Uh,
Yeah, Brooke?
Ken,
Yeah.
if I could possibly be in the first half hour of the agenda, I can do it.
We would move it because it's going to be, it would be one of only 2 items on the agenda other than just approval. There's no question we could do that.
Okay, terrific. I'll put it on my calendar.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thanks to both of you. Great. Okay, so on to the Dr. Dick Lear Award, item 10. What is
I
it?
think we have the Housing Nantucket request.
Oh, no,
regarding-
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I know, I'm sorry. Okay, so we have the Housing Nantucket request. Sorry, you've been waiting patiently, Anne and Billy. We have received a lot of paperwork, and I'm going to have Penny talk about this because she is our construction coordinator. I know that's not the right term, but
Oh, no, I'm not that. I'm just on
I
the
know, but you're
construction.
something, you're our construction liaison.
I just am on the committee.
Okay, on the committee.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So thank you for the letter, Ann, and the supporting documentation. Steve, do you want to give an overview on this for us?
Sure, happy to do so. And I'll defer to Anne first.
Okay.
I think she has some progress photos to share.
Great.
Yeah, Haley, I don't know if you can share your screen or if you'd like me to, but we have been making a lot of progress at the Wiggles Way site, and you'll see, let's see here. Just wait. We tried to summarize it all in one document. I think it's the last page of the packet.
There we go.
Yep.
Can folks see
So,
this?
yeah, it took
Good.
some, you want to zoom out a little bit, but you'll see there buildings 1 and 8 are completely weather tight, and we're doing some interior finish work at this point in there. So that's moving right along. And then building 2, the boxes were recently set on the foundation, working on getting them weather tight. Building 3 already weather tight. Buildings 4 through 7, the boxes are en route, and we've got barges. We had an update actually since I submit this, but the barges will be coming in the next 2 months, and Steve can talk more about that schedule.
Sure, thanks, Anne.
Okay.
And so big picture, there are 8 buildings to be built. 4 of them are largely in place at this point. And the balance of the boxes are due over the course of this month and next, with all boxes hitting the site before the end of the year. And so big picture, the trust has allocated about $8.5 million, 8.516 towards this project so far. To date, about half of that has been funded. And Housing Nantucket has made a requisition for the next payment, which will be for another $2 million. And so that is pending right now. Since last December, construction prices have continued to go up. And so here today, you have been presented with a request for an additional $1.76 million. That request, bear with me just one second here, would bring the total project cost up to just shy of 10.3 million, up above and beyond the current roughly 8.5 million. The cost of construction, exclusive of original development fees and special permit amendment fees, ends up being roughly about $450 per square foot. And that's commensurate with what's going on in the market right now, especially when you consider that that cost includes things like landscaping, site infrastructure, utility connections, stuff like that. It's not just a standalone cost for the buildings in a vacuum. And so it's reasonable from that standpoint. Overall, this would reflect an approximately 21% increase to the cost of the land development deal, or a 15% increase to the cost of the construction itself, exclusive of the aforementioned development fees. In your packet, you have a spreadsheet called the project costs. Yep, thank you. The project cost and change order calculation synopsis. And so what that does basically is compare Billy Cassidy's construction cost math in green against the second box, which is sort of the current parameters of the land development deal, and the funding that's been provided to the project so far. And then the third box compares those two distinct amounts to result in the total change order cost to the project.
And the bottom lines are the same with
That's
box 2 and 3.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so in the end, this second change order to the project would be that $1.76 million number.
So I just want to point out that the first change order involved an expansion in scope, significant expansion in scope from 18,000 to 22,000, was it 72 square feet?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. And I'm sorry Tucker's not here today, but we structured that first price change as a loan to be amortized over years 51 to 57. Is that right, Brooke? Do you remember? Yes. Okay. Potentially forgivable based upon certain milestones. Okay.
And
So
to interject, Penny, I think a portion of that may have been a grant and then a
Yeah, that's
portion of
right.
it a loan.
You're right.
Yep.
It was. Yeah. Sadly, none of us will be here to see that. But, okay. Stephen, are you done? Does anybody have any questions for you or for Steve? No. Okay. All right, Billy, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, I have one thing I'd like to add to it, and that is that I have I've got a great view, and I'm watching Building 4 being unloaded right now from the barge and tug realist, and it will be on site, I don't know, probably in an hour or so, as soon as school gets out. So in fact, there will be 5 total buildings on site prior to the end of the day, 4 on foundations, and things are about to heat up even a little bit more. So we have another barge scheduled for the 29th, another for the 30th, one for the 13th, and one for the 14th. I also received a notice from our over-the-road permitter off island, and we will have all of the boxes in our possession, all of the boxes meaning all of the houses in our possession by December 7th, in anticipation of those final 2 barges, the 13th and the 14th. So heading in the right direction.
Great, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Billy? No, okay. Yeah, Vicky, you're muted. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
Is the request that is being made for a loan of 1.76 million, and the terms of it, have they been proposed as far as?
I think that's what we're going to discuss next.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
It's been requested as a grant in the letter. Penny, I forwarded Tucker's staff recommendation to you that he had sent to me since he knew I, was going to be running this. But maybe you can talk about that if you're a better interpreter of such things than I am.
I don't know about that, but Tucker and well, first of all, Brian's apologetic that he was not able to be here. He had a family situation that required him to be in Boston. So, so Tucker has recommended a loan rather than a grant. This is his 2 cents on the additional funding request. He's recommending that we approve it to do so as a potentially forgivable loan if certain benchmarks are met. Some of them might include things such as smooth operation once the project is occupied, including on-time payments of the original loan. He does suggest that this new request should amortize coterminous with the last increase that was approved. And that kicks in starting year 51 and runs to year 57, I think he said. And then if Housing Nantucket feels they need a longer amortization period, then we need to see their cash flow projections with assumptions. So I guess I'd throw it out open to the board to discuss this. Also, I do want to say this needs to get, I think we should resolve this one way or another. Shouldn't drag our feet on this. We need to resolve this today.
Yeah,
Brooke, did you have anything to add to that?
Do we remember how we split the last request? And do you remember what portion of it was a loan and what portion was a grant?
I need to look at that. I will try to bring it up right now.
So I too like the idea of at least a portion of it being a loan. And I think that, just ongoing monitoring of performance of projects like this is important for us and with our partners. And I do think that it's hard to know what's coming down the road 10 years from now, much less 50 years from now. So I think having it as a loan is the financially responsible way to do it for municipal funding and for tax dollars. But I would be open to input from my fellow board members.
Ken, would you remember? Is Ken still on here? No?
No.
Yeah, they are. Do you remember? Can you, what the percentages were on the last?
No, I don't. Sorry.
No.
I pulled it up. The
Oh, thanks, Stephen.
810,000 was a grant.
Yeah.
And 956,000 was a loan, broken up into 2 amounts. 856 to cover redesigns and 100,000 to cover solar infrastructure.
Did that include the full 600 for the solar or just the 100?
Just 100,000 for solar
Okay.
infrastructure.
So we'd already pulled out the 500?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Thoughts?
Yeah,
Dave.
David.
I fall into Brooks' camp, but I wouldn't object to making at least part of it a grant based on performance down the long road.
So in other words, a forgivable loan.
Forgivable, yeah, a grant. I mean, not all of it, but a portion of it, and again, based on performance. Performance on finishing, and then performance with running it over, 10 years or whatever. But the major portion as a loan.
All right, Brooke, is your hand up?
Yeah, so Dave, just to clarify, you're saying a loan, a portion of it as a loan that is not subject to potential forgiveness? Or I was thinking, I don't mind the whole thing being subject to potential forgiveness, to be honest with you, like down the road. The question is, do we in essence like grant a portion of it now in cash and then add the loan like we did the last time? So the portion that was a loan for year 51 to 57 under our last agreement will be eligible for forgiveness
Yep.
if I remember correctly. And then a portion of it was a cash grant, immediate cash grant. So, yeah, Dave, you're muted. So
Not opposed to
would
that
be-
structure.
Yeah.
okay, so you're saying, like, let me just throw out some numbers. $1 million loan and $760 something thousand grant would be one option. And then the loan, the $1 million loan would run from year 51 to year 57 with the ability to come to us for forgiveness. And I think we can't really iron out criteria, but I think we should put it on a future agenda to establish potential forgiveness criteria. And frankly, they should come after they're in operations and we
Yep.
have an idea of what it is, the performance criteria once they're in operation. I think the construction part of this is going to happen. It's happening. I don't want to put deadlines or dates that may or may not be met in the current environment. I think it's really about how does this this development operate over the long term, and do they retain ownership, et cetera, et cetera. Because if for some reason Housing Nantucket decides to move this project on to another owner or operator, having those as loans, frankly, gives us leverage for performance from whoever owns the property long term. 50 years is a long time, and holding out leverage and control over that time.
I'd like to, I'd also like to suggest that whatever performance standards are developed are done in conjunction with the owner, with Housing Nantucket.
I would agree.
Yes, Vicky.
So, as you may be aware, we still need to do loan documentation in order to be able to fund these transactions. The prior transaction, the loan documentation has not yet been done either. So, which Brian Turbot has reminded us of. So, perhaps we can put something in the grant and loan agreement as to conditions, or prior to finalizing those loan documents, we come up with the conditions that at that point in time before we actually vote and finalize them.
And that could be representatives of each group in a non-violating open meeting law way. That brings it then back to the respective boards also. But these need to be, it needs to be wrapped up, codified, and recorded, in my opinion.
I think as far as voting today to move forward, and then as far as the other documents
Exactly.
would be
Yep.
subject to final approval.
Mhm.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Does anybody have anything else they want to add? Ken, why is your head in your hands? Yes, Rima.
I'd like to hear from Ann and or Steve or Billy, just their input on what they've heard from us so far.
Mhm.
Billy.
I'm not answering that, Rima. I think that is best left to Ann and Steve.
Okay, all
I
right,
just
your hand
wanted
is
to
up.
say, yeah, no, pardon me. I just wanted to say, I am going to go back to work. I have nothing further to add to this. And happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Vicky, nice to see you again.
Good to
Ken,
see you.
see you later, and thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Billy.
Thanks, Billy.
All right.
Ann?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. So thank you. I found the original response to our funding request here too. And it looks like, and this is all going fine here. Of course, we'd prefer a grant, but I totally understand why you would want to put it as a loan. The other letter said that this additional loan would be non-amortizing during the 50 years that the original loan was being paid off, and then it would amortize at 0.5 interest over a 7-year term. So if that's, I think that would be acceptable and very generous of you to offer. The grant was specified to cover the inflationary pressures that we were experiencing. So I don't know if you want to say that in your response as well.
Yep. And then the loan was the expansion of scope.
Yeah.
Right?
redesigns is
Yeah.
how it's specified.
Which got, and in the end, more significantly more square footage. I'd like to suggest whatever motion we're going to vote on here mirrors the same structure as the previous request. I think that makes sense. I know a lot of thought was put into it. Does somebody want to make a motion? Brooke?
I'm of two minds here. And let me just talk out loud for a second. The last time we approved this, the inflationary portion of it was a grant, not a loan.
Yep.
And this is, again, through no fault of the developer, the contractor, or anyone else, that these cost increases have come about. So I'm betwixt in between. All right, I'm going to make a motion for discussion. I'm going to move that we grant $1 million and structure a loan of $763,212 to run concurrent with the other loan under the same conditions in year 51 to 57, non-amortizing. And whatever other language, Vicky, you can offer my motion.
Vicky?
So I think, so it's $1 million as a grant.
Yep.
And the balance of the request as a loan. With the same terms as was in the original additional funding of amortizing the loan for years 51 through 57 and a non-amortized loan up to the first 50 years. And possible forgiveness of the loan based upon satisfaction of conditions that are to be determined.
And I would say performance standards, something like
Performance
that, if that's
standards.
okay with you, Brooke.
Yeah, that perfect. I forgot about that part. So I'm comfortable with that addition of the performance standards and the potential forgivability. I forgot that.
I'd second that.
Thank you, Dave.
Seconded
Any
by
more
Dave.
I'm sorry, Rima. We got co-chairs here writing.
I know.
Your co-flight attendants here.
Yeah.
Any more discussion on the motion? Anybody? Okay, we're going to do a roll call vote. Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Meg Browers,
Aye.
Shanta Blas Murphy, I'm saying it wrong, sorry.
Aye.
Shanta, thank you. And Penny Dye votes aye.
What
Thank you.
happened here?
What do you mean what happened?
You're all of a sudden chair?
No.
I'm co-chair. This got punted over to me just because I'm on the construction committee, but I am, lest you forget, co-vice chair of this committee. And I'm
I will
punting it
never
back
forget,
to
Penny,
Rima.
ever.
Tag, you're it, Rima Sherry. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Penny. Thanks
Welcome.
all. And, congratulations on the work that's going on at Wiggles Way. It is pretty fantastic, in my humble opinion. So, all right.
To everyone involved.
Absolutely. Now, the Dr. Dickler Award, item 10. We have a nice blurb that was prepared by Haley as per a meeting that we had with Sean and I and staff. And we are proposing that, well, I guess, what do we need to, we need to have action on this. And I don't think that Tucker has heard back from Sarah. I think we should also run this by the select board as far as having the announcement of the recipient at annual town meeting. And any initial discussion on where we are with this? I have to get to it in the packet.
I just had a question. This is limited to citizens, right?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I don't know really that we want to award, a staff member or someone, that serves on a board, but
Yeah, I was thinking maybe of somebody that formerly served in this world.
well, I think that would make a person eligible.
Yeah, I'll put the name forward when the time comes.
Okay,
Mm,
yeah,
Thank you.
Brooke.
Could we say or organization?
I think we really, I mean, I felt like the sense of it as proposed to Mrs. Dickler was an individual.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, just trying to find it in the packet, and I just went through all 78,000 pages.
Page 18 of 88 in the posted packet.
That'll help. Hold on. Yeah, I got lost in change order world over here. There's a lot. Okay. There.
That's not important.
Okay. Are you sure it's an 18?
Well,
No,
it depends on
it's
which
20.
18
one.
of the public packet, 20 of the
Oh,
board
okay. It's
packet.
20 of our packet. Okay.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. A community member. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think one person. So as far as an action goes, we can vote to adopt this language and move forward from here. Any discussion on that? We all good with it?
Mhm.
Excellent. Okay. Well, let's just do a vote to adopt the language for the Dr. Dickler Tribute Award as written.
I'll make
And-
that motion.
I'll
Second,
second it.
Oh, well. Haley, you decide who.
Penny got that. Penny got that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go with Penny.
All right. Roll call. Penny Dye,
I
Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Meg Browers,
Aye.
Chantal Blas Murphy,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Great. All right. And I'll get after
Ra-
Sarah and see.
Rima,
Yes.
would you like me to talk about this at the board meeting tomorrow night?
If you're able, maybe in public comment or
comments.
board comment, yeah,
Yep.
that would be great. Just to let them, give everybody a heads up, and
Yep.
that would be wonderful. Thank you very much,
Mhm.
Brooke.
Will do.
All right, other business. Our regular meeting will be December 19th at 12:30. Another Zoom. Any board comments? Okay. All right, well then I will entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session. Oh, Haley.
Sorry, I just meant to note that I believe it's December 20th and I made a mistake in the packet.
Oh, okay, all right.
Tuesday,
well,
December 20th, just for the public
right.
to know if they want to come.
Yeah, we will
Thank
make
you.
that the 20th. Thanks for that.
pretty close to a holiday party date.
Penny's
I'll
had-
make a motion.
Caterer.
I'll
Hey,
make a
there's an
motion.
office. We have an office now.
I'll
There's
make-
room in there.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn this regular meeting to reconvene an executive session to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of this public body.
And I will-
not to return
I'll-
to open meeting.
Not to
Not-
return to
Yep.
a regular meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Second,
All right, and roll call. Penny,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Brooke,
aye.
Meg,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, well, see you on the other side. Thank
See you
you
on the
very
other
much,
side.
everyone.